Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me this evening on Spiritual Times with me, Philip Solomon, the last Thursday of each month. And it's such a pleasure to have this little chat with you. I must apologise tonight, broadcasting in a t-shirt. I've got shorts on as well, but you can't see that. And you may hear the noise from a fan that I've got on my desk here in my little studio. It's just the heat wave, isn't it? I think it's absolutely killing us all, really. It's not that, is it, really? And we all mind about it, don't we? But there you go. Well, I'll tell you what, what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is something that I've been asked about by students, especially beginners, many, many times over the years. Pardon me. And that is, what is karma? Well, karma is something can has different meanings for each individual. And it is as changing orientation in what your religion may be. For me, for us as a spiritualist, I think I probably follow what would be quite close, maybe to the Buddhist religion. But it is for each and every one, really. And the things that you really need to remember, and I've taken a few notes here, is karma. Well, it simply means action, really, or in plain terms, it's the universal law of cause and effect. Now, I think you all probably know that or have heard that. And in simple terms, that's what it is. And what you put out in the world through your words, deeds, and intentions, we are taught, return to you over time, and sometimes in future lives, if you believe in uh, past lives and future lives, which I certainly do. But quite often, those things that you do that are not very nice or are not very pleasant, the same can return to you in this life. And time again, I think I've seen that happen over and over, really. You know, it's not a magical system, really, of instant cosmic punishment. Uh, I think it was John Lennon wrote something on those lines, or was it my good friend George Harrison? I'm not quite sure which one I recall on that. May have been George. Um, but rather a natural a pattern, if you like, of sowing and reaping what you sow. What you sow you will reap, if you like. And if we look at the very word sowing and reaping in the context of karma, you could probably I suppose, compare it to gardening. I've got to be admitting to you, I'm not much into gardening, really. So it's probably the perfect example that I thought of. Both my grandfathers were incredibly keen on gardening, and my father as well, but I'm not into it at all. Never have been, really. But there you go. But, as you sow, so you shall reap. If you plant some wonderful tomato seeds and you look after them and you put them in your ground, I suppose you'd have to have them in your greenhouse to get a bit of sunlight, wouldn't you, really? But if you plant tomato seeds, good tomato seeds, you'll grow good tomatoes in time. That's what will come for you. If you treat people with kindness and patience, you cultivate a peaceful sort of reaction with them, really, and they're very likely to be peaceful and kind and nice to you. Whereas if for some reason that you don't do that in the way that you should, eventually it will come back to you. I'm not going to say a perfect example, but I always remember a very, very famous rock star, and I won't say his name, but I remember I was doing something for I used to work for Wolverhampton Wanderers program. We used to do the stars of all the players and the astrology column in there. Or sometimes we'd do, the sort of the horoscope, if you like, of someone who was well known and famous. And I always remember saying to the chap, "I won't say the name," but I said, "Would it be okay to do yours? There's no charge, it's free." Oh, wow, a free horoscope. And I always thought, you ignorant man. And someday I'm sure that will come back to him. In fact, it probably already has. How you speak to people, how you treat them, it will come back to it. Pardon me, I've got this wretched cough at the moment, but not to worry. Habits as echoes. That's the funny thing that I used to say to my students, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Explain that our daily choices shape our character, especially if we're trying to be mediums. Repeated behaviours leave deep impressions in our minds. Kindness makes it easier to be kind tomorrow. Bitterness makes it easier to be bitter. Now, I know it's probably fairly obvious, but it really is true. If you were in a... oh, dear me, I can get through this next half hour. If you were in a cave and you shouted out, hello, what would come back to you? Hello, exactly the same. But if you shouted out something nasty, what would come back to you? Something nasty. And I always think of habits as echoes, and I think that's sort of an interesting one. Again, focus on intention over guilt. That's something that I often say. The motive matters. Clarify. This is what I'm going to clarify for you. Karma is driven by intent. An accidental mistake of doing something not very nice, you know, if you didn't intend to do it, you won't get bad karma for that. But if you did intentionally or make actions that you know would upset someone or take away from them things that you know would mean a lot to them, then that will happen to you. That's going to come back and happen to you. We all see it in life, don't we? We've all suffered that. And we see where people have been not very nice to us or taken away something that's important to us. But I can guarantee you, you might be upset at the time, but they will get the same back. If you can really, really be very spiritual and not wish that, not out for that, that will get you even better karma. Now, there's one to remember. I suppose too much focusing on intention over guilt. The motive matters. Clarify that karma is driven by intent. An accidental mistake, this is what I would used to say to my students, an accidental mistake does not carry heavy negative karma. What matters is where your actions came from and the place that you were coming from. You know, were you angry when you did something? Were you feeling nasty or selfish? Were you being offensive like that person was to me? You know, yeah, because you would know in your heart if you speak to someone like that, and that you know that you're going to upset them. Could you put that right? I think you could. I mean, I think karma like that can be avoided by simply saying, next time you say to the person, say, you know, I was a bit short with you, Jean, Jackie, whatever. I didn't mean that really. I'm sorry about that. Oh, we're okay. You're not going to get bad karma because you've reacted on it and taken away the bad karma that would eventually come back to that person, and they will be happy as well. You know, because you weren't really intending to be bad to someone. It has to have intent to be bad or to treat people badly for it really to have a great effect upon you. Okay. What can I say? Remember that old age is also a time when I think we look back very much on our lives. I found that with my, I ain't really old age, I think, only 27, but and a few more years and stuff like that. But you know, when we reach older years, I think we can look back and see where you know we were unkind to people, but we didn't do the best for them. You know, forgiveness is a big thing. Someone does something to you and they apologize. Let that be enough. Let that be enough. Because if you don't, you'll get what I call reverse karma. And the bad karma that they would have got for not being very nice to you or doing bad things to you will rebound towards you. So you must be prepared to forgive people if they apologize, but they make an effort to put something of that nature, you know, in the past. That's an important one, that is. Empowerment in the present. Emphasize that it is never too late to shape your life. And there's lots of, I'll tell you what, some great videos on YouTube that you can go and see about karma, because I can just give you personal views and how I see it, really, where there's loads and loads upon, I suppose, different things that you could watch on YouTube and things like that, and they're very, very interesting to watch. But, it's one of those things. What does karma mean? Well, in simple terms for me, it just means, what you give out, so you will get back. I'll give you that example of tomatoes, obviously. If you plant seeds that are not very nice, you probably grow weeds, wouldn't you? So a lot of it really is within your own way of making life turn and be good. I would emphasise, and I've always said this to all my students, do your very best not to. By the way, my wife always tells me when on stage I'm fine, but when I'm recording in the studio, I always go backwards and forwards. Perhaps I'm meditating or something. I don't know. But she says it's very irritating, and I suppose it is. So I'll stop it. I'll keep still. But there you go. I'm probably getting on somebody out there getting on your nerves, by doing that. But if I am, I'm sorry about it, and that means that I won't get sort of karma back from it. Some of the great world's religions, I suppose, the Hindu faith and Buddhist religion, they very much play the part, don't they, in karma being an important part of your life. I think for everyday ordinary people, what we really have to try and do is be as good and as kind as we can be in this very difficult times. And it is a difficult time that we live in because have you noticed how money seems to be going nowhere these days? Every time you go to the supermarket, I'm doing this again, aren't I? It's because you're my friends, you see, and I want to reach out to you. Now, seriously, but every time you go and do the shopping now, it's an extra £20, isn't it? And some people, they have to live on very, very tight budgets. And those of us who are a bit lucky, perhaps from a time that we could save a little bit of money, are finding that we're having to spend that money now. And I think that can make you resentful. And I've even seen people who say, oh, what I've done all these good things all my life, and yet I never seem to get anything coming back. And I would always say to them, well, you've got a nice home, haven't you, and you're comfortable financially, aren't you? You're not living on the street. Your life is there for you. And they'll say, well, our people are living on the street, it's their own fault. But is it? Is it? Often people find themselves with nothing because life has put them in that position. And people, when I've talked about karma, they've said to me, oh, well, that's they're getting karma, aren't they, for things they did in their past life. I don't know. Maybe they are. But I think if you're going to judge them and you're going to be, sort of thinking, oh, I'm not going to feel sorry for them, then one day you might be in that same position and no one will feel sorry for you. Oh, sometimes my wife will sound a bit of a fool, but I've always, in this one particular way, but I've always said if I knew anyone was really difficult in difficulties and I could help them, I would see what I could do to provide help for them, even if it was just advice or things of that nature. I mean, we can't all feed the world. It's impossible, isn't it? We have to rely on the governments of our countries to, in the wider context, if you like, to help those who are poorer than us and give them a chance. And even as countries our countries have karmas, and people don't always understand that. I've known people who were on difficult times, and I've not had. I mean, let me tell you here now. People say to me, "Oh, the levels of mediumship that you've worked at, and the theatre shows, and the books, and the TV, the radio work, you must have loads of money." Well, they'd be wrong. I've never really hardly made any money out of my spiritual work at all, and I'm not bothered about that. I was friends with very well-known mediums who were quite well off and quite successful financially, but it's not important. And when the time comes, is you've got to go, make your progression to the next life. You can't take that money with you, but you can take with you all the good things that you've done in life. And hopefully, those who are waiting to receive you in the next realm, the higher network, whatever you want to call them, your loved ones, spirit friends, will welcome you and say, "Well done. You've done well spiritually." And that would probably be the most important karma that you could ever receive. And as I say, if you can go over and receive that, that would be good. So what am I saying? Karma means so many different things to so many different people. And it depends really on what tradition, what religion that probably you believe. Don't matter if you're any religion at all, you still get karma. Breaking it down to the very basic things, it's what I said at the start of my notes, which I've now got upside down. Me typical, isn't it? That is me typical. But yeah, karma simply means, in very simple terms, it's the universal law of cause and effect. What you put out in this world or give through your words, through deeds that you do, intentions, or just being kind of thought for people, you will be rewarded for that. But if you decide in your life to be bitter and to not want to help people, and you enjoy, upsetting people and being nasty to them, then you will sow the seeds that one day will come back and flourish in your life or lives to come, if you believe in future lives. Because that's something I think you have to think about. So many people today, me included, I absolutely believe in past lives and probably future lives to come. I really do. The spirit world, as a reverend medium in the Spiritualist Society, I've often said to my colleagues, that there's a spirit world for sure. And I tune into it as a lot do. Not all of them. Some so-called mediums work in a different way. But I think the higher network, the spirit world, is quite close to us, really. And if you have the ability to just step over into that world and meet them halfway, that's how it works. But if you're trying to be a healer, or you're trying to be a medium or to do psychic work, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Always do your very best but think first of how you can help people. Even recently, people have said to me, "Oh, you don't charge anywhere for your readings, like what other famous men, well, not the word famous, but you know what I mean. You don't charge anywhere near what they do." One lady was saying to me a few weeks ago, I think she paid £350 for a reading with pretty well known media, psychic medium, as she calls herself. I don't sit too comfortable with that. We have to use it because the media calls us psychic mediums, don't we? But a psychic and a medium is a very different thing. And that would be for me to chat to you at other times. And if you do go on to my Spiritual Times with Philip Solomon on my YouTube site, you probably find something to tell you about that. Just think in simple terms of sowing and reaping what you plant. What you do, so will you receive. And more often than not, that will be in this world, but it may be in future worlds to come. Some people say to me that, what about your family then? How does it affect them? Well, I don't particularly believe that the bad things that we do uh, come back to make our family suffer. I don't think a loving God, a kind Lord that I believe in would do that. But it does say in the Bible that if you don't do as you should, you commit sin. Then even those that your offsprings might be they will even suffer for it. I'm not going to say that I believe that, but I think it's something that a lot of people have asked me about, as well as read the Bible in depth, and you could find that. But all the advice that I would give you, if you want good karma, is be a kind person, be good to those around you, not just your family, but those your neighbours, your friends. people that you don't even know. And next time you walk past that lass or lad sitting in a door shop, you know, with an old coat around them, and you hear people say, oh, they should be getting a job, they should. If you can afford to put a few pence or a few shilling in there, I would do it if I was you, because maybe there goes you in another life or in another time. And that few pence can help that person maybe start on a new pathway. I am a person who in the past, if I've known people who had difficulties, I've just put money through the front door. I didn't even want them to know it was me. And but I'm not saying that you should do that. That's something that I sort of walk that pathway, and not everybody can afford to do that. And be grateful for the things that you have as well. That's another thing. If you're very lucky and you've got a lot of good things in your life, don't forget that the Lord give you those things and can be taken away. That might be another way of receiving karma, good or bad. So many people I've seen, famous celebrities who've been right at the top of the tree in the entertainment business. And all of a sudden, their music, their style of writing, their broadcasting abilities are not what people want. And their lifestyle completely changes. But as you see others who seem to just roll along and keep doing well over and over again. Now, you might, you wouldn't be human if at times we don't think, oh, that's not fair. Uh, why don't I get what I should get from all good things? Well, you're living, aren't you? You wouldn't be alive if you weren't watching. You wouldn't be able to watch my video tonight if you weren't alive. You can afford a computer and you can afford to, switch the electric on. Well, some people find that they can't do that today, don't they, in these difficult times? But you understand the point that I'm trying to make. It's ever so important to just try to be kind. Karma really is about being kind. You be kind, and others will be kind to you. Plant good seeds in your life, not for weeds. Plant good seeds, grow good tomatoes, and I'll speak to you again in a month's time. Uh, Karma means so many things to different people. I'm sure if there are people who follow in the Hindu faith who are saying tonight, well, what does Philip know about that, Or maybe from the, I don't know, from the Buddhist faith. But I think really what I've said to you really would break down basically to what it's all about. But what you can do today really is just go on your computer and type in the word karma. What does it mean? And they'll probably have to give you reams more information than I can do in an half-hour video. But then maybe that's my opportunity. That's what I'm given, an opportunity to influence a few of you to think about that pathway. And I wish you all the best karma in the world. And I'm sure all of you, that is what you will receive. And I will say good night and God bless. And I will see you same time, same place, last Thursday of the month. And it's always a great pleasure to have a little chance to answer a few questions or maybe a few topics. If there is something you'd like me to talk about and you don't want to sort of, send it in an email or something like that, go on Facebook, you've seen me on Facebook and sign a message of Philip, would you talk about this one of the weeks? That's basically how I decide on topics to talk about. All these things that I've talked to you about is because people have either asked me about it when I've been training them in colleges or spiritualist churches or whatever. Or I suppose we live in the digital world today, don't we? Where, you can just go on your internet and send a message through Facebook. And you see me there as well. And you'll be able to think of me. Send me some good karma. That's what I need. And I will do the same for you. Once again, good night and God bless.